So really, during this Enlightenment period, we're going to talk about philosophes, okay? And these philosophers. And there are a few of them that you're going to really want to make sure that you know. There's a few that you're going to want to make sure that you understand. And the first, and maybe the most important, is a guy named Voltaire. Voltaire was imprisoned as a young man for talking negatively to a French nobleman. He was a Frenchman and apparently said something that the noble didn't like, and the noble put him in jail. And he says, wait a minute, why should I go to jail for speaking my mind? He also was exiled to England at one point, where he sees their Bill of Rights, and he comes back to France and he says, did you guys know that in England that all people have certain rights that must be guaranteed to them by the government? And at that point in France, they had a leader who had absolute power. Voltaire also says that we should have freedom to speak our mind. I shouldn't have gone to jail for saying something bad to a nobleman. He also says that there should be freedom of religion. He makes this statement, and I love this statement. I think it can be applied to other things other than just religion, but he says, when there's only one religion, they will force you to be that religion under threat of death. He says, when there's two religions, they'll fight. But when there's a lot of religions, they learn to all live together peacefully. So I don't want to call him the father of the Enlightenment, but one of the early great thinkers is a guy named Voltaire. We also have a guy named the Baron of Montesquieu. He was French nobility, and he writes about separation of powers. He says that one person or one group should not have all of the power in the government. Instead, it should be spread out to different people, to different groups. And if you know about our government, you know that we have three different equal or supposedly equal branches of government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. So again, under the idea of kind of trying to trace where our ideas for government come from, we can see that Montesquieu's ideas were definitely influential in forming our government. We also know of a guy named Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau is part of the second wave of the Enlightenment, now later 1700s. He was born into a low-class family in Switzerland. He lived in the French countryside, but he wrote that people should have a social contract with their rulers, an idea that Locke hints at in the late 1600s. And he's basically saying that people should agree who their leaders are. And in America, how do we agree who our leaders are going to be? Well, I'll tell you this, I put my vote in as to who should be our next leader yesterday, as I did some early in-person voting in Winnetka. So again, what are we doing? We're figuring out some of these important philosophers, what their ideas were, and how these ideas long-term impacted Europe and in turn the United States, because we know that our country got its ideas about government from Europe. Our country was formed by Europeans, in fact, by Englishmen, mostly. A little bit of French influence there. A guy named Dennis Diderot writes an encyclopedia. Now, you may not think this is a big deal. And let me just tell you a story. When I was in sixth grade, I had my best buddy at the time. He was this guy named Dane. And I remember when his mom bought him a set of encyclopedias for his house. And he was so proud and so happy that he called me up when his mom brought it home. He's like, come over. It was like a weekend. He's like, come over. You got to check out this new encyclopedia set my mom got me. It's beautiful, color pictures. And I rode my bike over there. We looked through these books for hours. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful. Now, you may not know this, but before the internet, when you wanted to do research, you had to go to the library to use encyclopedias. And for the rest of my middle school and high school life, I got to go to my buddy's house to do my internet research, to do my research. And in fact, to this day, I'm going to strongly suggest that you don't get a lot of your research information from the internet, but instead that you actually grab an old school encyclopedia. Because the truth is that a lot of what you find on the internet is very biased. And is very agenda driven. It's not meant to tell the truth. It's meant to push someone's point of views. And that's why it's so important to know your source when we speak about internet research and internet facts. And one of the best sources out there has been, still will be, and always will be good old fashioned encyclopedias. I know, I'm an old guy. We can also talk about a guy named Adam Smith. Now, earlier, I showed you guys a video about mercantilism, which was the economic system that was in place in Europe before Adam Smith and his book, The Wealth of Nations, where he talks about free laissez-faire, that the government should stay out of the economy. This economic system is called capitalism, and we have what's called a mixed market economy, which is a mixed government, which is more of a market economy, and a market economy is capitalism. So the ideas behind our government came from Adam Smith. And in the 1800s, in the early half of our country, we were very much a pure capitalist government. It's only been the last 120 years that we've seen some socialist ideas mixed in with what is still mostly a capitalist government in our country. So again, you're gonna want to know 5 of these people and their ideas about government, and then you want to understand that a lot of these ideas about government are where we get our ideas about government.